Today is the feast of St. Louis de Montfort. You may not know him, but he is the great Marian writer. He authored the book True Devotion to Mary and provides for us a roadmap of consecration to Mary. Now, growing up in the Bible Belt, many times I heard people say, "Oh, you Catholics, you worship Mary. You turn your attention away from Jesus. You make Mary the fourth person of the Trinity. You do this, you do that. She's a distraction. She's an obstacle. Stop it." But of course, that's not what we Catholics do. And in fact, Mary is not an obstacle, but rather an example that leads us closer to Jesus. Who is the first and perfect disciple? Mary. With her fiat at the time of the Annunciation, she gave a complete, heartfelt yes to God's plan. Isn't that what we're supposed to do as disciples? She never drew attention to herself. It's all about fulfilling God's plan, and it's about her son's mission. And there she was, at the beginning of his life, all the way to the end, standing faithfully at the foot of the cross. So Mary for us is not a distraction. She is the perfect model for how we are to be disciples. Now, sometimes my friends would counter, yes, that's true, but then by focusing on Mary, you make her a distraction. She's not a distraction in and of herself, but we make her one. No, the more we look at Mary, the more we see how we should receive the Word of God in our hearts, the way we should be trusting in God's plan, the way we should be generous in our service of the Lord. So she is a great part of our spiritual life because she leads us closer to her Son. And in fact, even if you and I could quibble back and forth whether or not she's helpful to us in terms of an example or a distraction, all that, forget what we think about it. From the cross, Jesus did not say many things, and he didn't say any of them that were useless or trivial. But one of the few things he did say, he looked at St. John the Beloved, who represented all of the disciples, not just at that moment, but all of the disciples of all time. And he said to John, "Behold your mother." And then he said to Mary, "Behold your son." So he gave Mary one of his last gifts. He gave his own mother to be our spiritual mother. So really, whether you and I have opinions about whether it would be helpful to include Mary or not, forget our opinions. Jesus has spoken. He has given Mary to us as our spiritual mother. That's his gift. His vote counts, our votes don't. And in fact, by giving her as mother, the fourth commandment now applies. Honor thy father and thy mother. We owe to Mary an honor that comes as she is now our spiritual mother, directly given by Jesus from the cross. And in fact, when Mary gave her great song of praise to God, the Magnificat, she said, "All generations will call me blessed." That is Mary speaking under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. It's not Mary puffing herself up. It's a statement of truth. She will be honored by all generations because she is the perfect disciple. And she's the one chosen by God for this intimate sharing in the mission of Jesus. She can teach us how we share in the mission of Jesus as well. So, this is all to prepare us for the month of May, which is sometimes called Mary's month. Now, just to be clear, May 1st happens to be the feast of St. Joseph the Worker. So he gets in there too. But the month of May in general is dedicated to Mary because she is the most beautiful flower in the garden of saints. And May is a time for flowers. So May, Mary's month, is a time for us to draw closer to Jesus by drawing closer through Mary. And the great way of doing that? The Holy Rosary. Now, I know some people might sigh and go, "Oh no, not the Rosary. It's a rote prayer, and it takes time, and I get distracted and bored, and I lose it, and the kids won't sit still, and I tried it before, and it didn't work for me, and isn't there something else?" Sure, there are lots of other things, but there's still the Rosary. And don't let go of the Rosary just because it's difficult, just because you've tried it and you've experienced a challenge with it, just because it takes time and the kids squirm. It's worth delving into the riches of the Rosary. Why? Because the Rosary is the way that the laity have drawn close to this great hymn of praise of God that the monks in the Middle Ages would pray all 150 Psalms of the Book of Psalms, right? 150 Psalms. And the monks did that as a continual cycle of praise. By doing so, they were being in touch with the way Jesus prayed with his disciples. The Book of Psalms is the hymn book, the book of sung praise of God that the ancient Israelites prayed with. So Jesus would have prayed that way with his disciples, so the monks prayed that way. But the laity at the time of the Middle Ages, of course, largely were not able to read and write. And of course, even if they could, books, this is before the printing press, books were hand copied by monks. They were very rare and very expensive. So it wasn't available for the laity to pray the Liturgy of the Hours. So instead they came up with this process that Our Lady revealed to St. Dominic, this beautiful way of prayer. So whereas the Book of Psalms has 150 Psalms, so the Rosary traditionally had 150 Hail Marys, right? That's 15 decades, right? 15 mysteries with 10 Hail Marys each. So that mirrored the Book of Psalms. Now, thank God, Pope St. John Paul II said, you know what? There are 5 more mysteries that we can meditate on, and he gave us, not quite 20 years ago, he gave us the luminous mysteries of the Rosary. Wonderful mysteries. If you haven't yet explored those, get in touch with those. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why the Rosary should be front and center, at least in May. Try it in May, but I think if you try it in May, you'll want to keep it with you the whole year round. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who's one of my favorite saints, had a number of mystical experiences. And one of those, Our Lady made a promise to her. Our Lady said, teach them to pray the Rosary, the family Rosary, and all will be well. Teach them to pray the Rosary, the family Rosary, and all will be well. Well, that sounds like a really good promise to me. All will be well. And of course, Our Lady has said it at Fatima. She's said it at Lourdes. She's said it countless times. She's led people to the Rosary, because the Rosary doesn't lead us to her, but leads us with her to Jesus. Go through the list of all 20 mysteries, and you'll find they're all about Christ. Every single one of them. You could argue that the last 2 are not, which are the 2 last glorious mysteries, the Assumption of Mary and the Coronation of Mary. But in fact, I could argue right back to you that they are about Christ as well. But I want you to go into them thinking about how they lead you to Jesus. Pope St. John Paul II said, contemplate the face of Jesus with Mary. That's what the Rosary does. Now, there are ways that we can do it that help us. Like before each mystery, you could read a little meditation on that mystery. You could that way have it come to mind. Or you could even get artwork and put up on your computer screen or what have you, or print them out, or get a book. There are illustrated books of the mysteries of the Rosary. Find there an image and look at that image as you're praying those. And if you have little kids, you know what? Fine. Start with 1 decade of the Rosary. Takes about 2.5 minutes. All right? You can manage that. Don't give up so easily. 1 decade of the Rosary together as a family every day. That we can do. That's a bite-sized chunk. We can tackle that. And it's going to be a way that we come closer to God by inviting Our Lady to show us the way to Him. And also, it's the life story of Jesus. You're not going to read the gospel, the entire thing, every day, but by reading and praying the meditations of the Rosary, each mystery is leading us, walking us through Jesus' life and ministry. So it really is a very rich spiritual treasure for us. Mother Teresa also described the Rosary. She said, putting the Rosary in your hand and praying it is like putting your hand into the hand of your mother and walking with her. I love that image. You know, I remember as a kid, when we'd be out for a walk in the neighborhood, if we came to the corner and there's a stop sign and there's going to be traffic, what did Mom insist on? Take you by the hand, and then we'll walk across the street together. And that's what Mary wants to do for us. Anytime we come to any sort of danger, anytime we come to a decision point, going this way or that way, anytime there are obstacles or dangers, Mary's going to be right there. She wants to hold us by the hand. She's a good mother, and she wants to guide us safely across that street and into our true destination, our true home of heaven. So let's use the month of May to do that. Now, Pope Francis has asked that we add 2 prayers to the end of the Rosary during this time of crisis. So I'm not going to have the ability to read those to you right now and have you memorize them. It'd be much easier for me to give you a text. So I'll send that out in our flock note for those of you who are Holy Family parishioners. You'll find them there. Otherwise, anybody else, just go to Google and do Pope Francis Rosary, or something like that. It'll be in the Catholic News, and you'll find all of the ways that. We'll probably also put it up on the Holy Family website. Make it real easy for you to find those 2 prayers. So let's make a point to recommit to the Rosary daily as a family through the month of May. St. Louis de Montfort, whose feast day it is, will be very pleased with us because he knew that the Rosary is this beautiful way of coming closer to Christ with that first and perfect disciple. Know of my prayers for all of you. God bless you.